What's the other one? No meat? Whatever it is.
You're getting walked on or something.
I think somebody's trying to call.
On Curtis.
We get feedback. Yeah, yeah. You can hear it, okay, right? Oh, yeah, I can hear it. Yeah. Yeah. We both need to announce this, where we are, when we vote. Yeah. Yeah.
Second person's on?
Is Ms. Crockett on?
I don't know.
Susan?
Sam, that was me. I was trying to dial in. This is Jack Volpato. I was trying to dial in on my own phone. I'm sitting there with John Heaton, and there was just too much feedback between the two phones, so I hung up and wanted to talk through his phone.
Okay. And who's taking minutes for us today?
Looks like
Good morning, Mrs. Crockett.
Okay.
Morning.
Susan. Morning.
Morning.
Okay, I think, is that all of our attendees?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to go ahead and have a roll call. I'll call the meeting to order, have a roll call. If each one are on the phone, would you please state your name and the entity you're representing? Go ahead, John.
Hey, this is John Heaton, and thank you, Sam, for taking over the meeting. I'm out of town. I thought it would be much easier if Sam did it, and he graciously consented to do so. I am in Washington, D.C., and so I am online.
And you're representing the city of Carlsbad, correct?
And I represent the city of Carlsbad. Jason is not attending, is that correct? Jason Shirley?
Okay. So according to our bylaws, you'll be able to vote on his behalf today, correct?
Yes, unless he shows up. He's sometimes late.
Okay. Our next phone in?
And this is Jack Volpato, representing Eddy County.
Okay.
Susan Crockett, Eddy County Commissioner, representing Eddy County.
Okay. Anybody else on the phone?
Well, John Waters is on the phone from the DOD.
Okay. Okay, those present are Mr. Gallagher,
Mike Gallagher representing Lee County.
Finn Smith representing Hobbs.
and Sam Cobb representing Hobbs. So the first item on our agenda today is the considered approval of minutes from June 12, 2019. I'll give you a couple of minutes to review those, and then I'll ask for a motion to approve.
Sam, I move for approval of the minutes.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion by Mr. Smith and a second by Mr. Gallagher for the approval of the minutes. I'll go ahead and ask for a roll call vote. Mr. Heaton?
Yes.
Mr. Volpato?
Yes.
Ms. Crockett?
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
And I vote yes. So the motion does pass unanimously. Director staff comments. This is a discussion item, and John, are you going to lead these?
Mr. Chairman, if you would allow me, I'd like to give a little bit of a review of what's been going on in the last 2 or 3 months.
Okay.
Just so the members know about the high activity level that has been occurring. On June 19th, between Holtec staff and our lobbying staff, they met with, there was a Democratic Party forum in Santa Fe. They were there. It was a setup, most likely to oppose the project, but they were there and helped offset some of that. And then on the 19th, we also met with the New Mexico Building Construction Trades Council in an effort to talk to them about contracts with various contractors and unions to get work into the area. As you know, there's concern about the numbers of employees that are around and businesses that could do what they need to have done. So they were talking to them. Also on July the 23rd, Finance Committee, Director Abby, as well as the Deputy Director and the individual that's in charge of economic development and one that's the analyst for natural resources, and provided them a briefing. They were interested in what the potential income might be to the state in their formulation of the budget and when that might occur. So we went through that with them. Then later on the 23rd, we met with several cabinet secretaries, Secretary Kenny, Secretary Lindsay, who's Homeland Security, and Secretary Keys, who is the Economic Development Secretary, and went through the status of the project at this point. And there were a lot of questions, and I think we appropriately answered those. Secretary Kenny, who has been designated as the lead from the governor's office, is very receptive to having conversations and learn more about the project, and I think I'm pleased that he's willing to listen to us and meet with us. So I think it will make a difference. Subsequent to that, we met with John Bingaman very briefly to introduce ourselves and talk about the project briefly. Then we met with...
And John Bingham is Chief of Staff for the Governor's Office.
He's Chief of Staff, I'm sorry.
That's right. Just for clarification for the minutes, yeah.
Yes, and then we met with Brian Egoff, who is Speaker of the House, and we met with Mary Kay Papin, who is the Senate Pro Tem. We met with those two individuals separately, reviewed the project with them again, and I think we've got good support from them. We also then met in the afternoon with the oil and gas folks, primarily Concho. We met with Carol Leach and Chris Bowler, who's, I think he's from Houston, but was very interested in the project. And we went through a description of the whole thing to try to answer any questions about our impact on the oil and gas industry, which is absolutely zero. We have no impact. They can drill and frack underneath the site. We have 1,500 feet of salt, which buffers anything that may come up from the underground, and there's just no impact on the surface whatsoever. So anyway, we went through the technical issues related to that, and we then had dinner with Ryan Flynn that night, and he is a very big supporter from DeMoga, and I think he's been a big help in offsite studying the Permian Basin group that wrote the letter at the behest of the governor, which, as you know, was subsequently rescinded in a statement. Nobody ever sees the recensions, but they always see the original. So, at any rate, it was. And then again on the next day, met with Courtney Icarus, who's president of the New Mexico Building Construction Trades Council, again to talk about employments and what the integration with the unions may be or not be. So I think that that's progressing. On the 24th, also met with the Albuquerque Journal, their editorial board led by Naval Westfall, and went over the project. They have been very partial to us. We've met with them before, and so that's a good relationship to continue. I think when it's appropriate, they will be supportive, or at least we're hoping that we get that impression. In August, on the 5th, we started the movement down the east side. So met with people in Portales, Clovis, Roswell, met with their emergency response people, as well as the local officials and the legislators that were able to come. And so that was a very good and productive meeting. And what Clovis and Curry counties, we met with them, the same thing, their emergency response people as well as commissioners. And so we then went to Roswell and met with Chaves County, the legislators from Chaves County, as well as the county commissioner. And that was a productive meeting as well. And got some good information from them, good feedback, and good support. Then we moved down the next day on the 6th to Artesia, where we met with their county government and gave them a briefing, and also met with their emergency response people, police chief, fire marshal. And then we met later on in the afternoon with the Artesia Chamber of Commerce, and I think that was a very good meeting. There were a number of folks there from various aspects of the community, and I think that we answered a lot of their questions as the chamber and as community business people. And then that evening went on to Carlsbad and met with the local elected officials and had dinner with them. So then went on to the next day, Lovington, Hobbs, Eunice, and Jowl. Met with the mayor of Jowl and his city manager, Matt White, and went over some of the points, trying to, again, gain favor with them. And then met with yourself, Mr. Chairman, and Larry Scott and Chris Mills and Dwayne Pennick, I think, joined you and had a dinner meeting, and that was very productive. I was not there, but I understand a lot of good strategies were put forth. And then on the 8th, and met with the Hobbs News Sun, the publisher, and I think that was a very good meeting. And then subsequently had a meeting with David Gallegos and Yvette Harrell, who's a candidate for the 2nd District, and they were very supportive. Met with the Goff Dairy in outside of Lovington, and they wanted to make it very clear that they were not in cahoots with the dairy industry in New Mexico, that they had a different opinion about it, and they were interested in the oil and gas industry and even this industry, and that they made their own decisions. And I think they welcomed the briefing. And then we went over to Roswell and met with the dairy producers over there, primarily the Squires, who have been opposing it. It's pretty surprising. They're both veterinarians and have expertise in X-ray and medical technology. So at any rate, I think that we modified their positions in a fairly large way. So that was kind of that series of meetings. We've been pretty busy in the last couple of months making those rounds. On Thursday, Ed Mayer made a presentation to the Water and Natural Resources Committee of the Legislature, and I think that went pretty well. The usual beginners had not changed their position, but at any rate, I think that it really helps to continue to educate. And but there's still plenty of supporters on that committee and in the legislature. So the last 2 days, just to let you know what we've been doing, is that aside from some of the other calls we've been making about a variety of different issues in Washington, we called on our delegation and we've given them an update on where the project is and what's going on with it, what's going on with the transportation, the rail car development, the bumper car, and the escort car, and that development that's going on. Gave them an update on that. And then we met with three folks from California, Scott Peters and his LD, and also Representative Ruda's LD, who both represent the San Onofre area. And they are very supportive of what we're doing, and they were delighted that we came by. We also met with Senator Feinstein's Energy Council, and he too gave him an update. Of course, she's been a major supporter of interim storage and a major pusher of it. So that's kind of a brief update. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer those.
Any questions from the members of the board? Well, John, you guys have been busy. We appreciate the amount of time that you're spending on that. So if you have nothing further, I'm going to ask, Mr. Caldwell may have from the internal staff. You have any comments, John?
I do not.
Okay. That will take us to item number 5, the financial report discussion. Chip.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you look at the report, it's on section 5. Year to date, we've had $11,657.60 worth of expenditures. There's been no revenue received at this time. It normally comes in around June. We have an ending cash balance at August 31st of $119,774.39. I stand for questions.
Any questions? Any questions from anyone on the phone?
No.
Okay. Next item for discussion, status of percentage ownership of Eddy Lea. Mr. Caldwell? Or,
I've got it.
you got it. Okay. Mr. Lowe?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was reviewing some documents recently. We were thinking about trying to look at this, and there was when the agreement was redone back in 2013, there was an attachment in there that stated at that time that every member's equity percentage was 25%. So I started at June 30, 2013, because it's kind of hard to go back and find some of these expenditure documents because of previous fiscal agents. And so I just went through and, based on the audits, went through and summarized all the changes over the years. And
What page is that on?
it's on page 6. It's right behind the financial report, Mr. Chairman. And, sir?
So go ahead.
Okay, so at 6/30/2019, now the 6/30 numbers are unaudited, and there may be an adjustment, little adjustment here or there. It will not change the percentage any at all. But if you look down at the bottom, the current membership equity at 6/30/19 is 25.55% for Eddy County, 23.35% for Lee, 25.55% for Carlsbad, and 25.55% for the city of Hobbs. I have reviewed and discussed this with the finance directors of each of the member entities, and they're all in agreement with this. So that is where we are at this point. The difference in it, of course, is due to the fact that Lee County didn't make a contribution during the fiscal year 2019. And I'm working with the auditor to include this for future reference in the supplemental section of the audit, so that we will always have that moving forward. And I stand for questions on it if you have them.
How does this relate to voting rights and some of those kinds of things? Any shape, form, or fashion?
Mr. Chair, Directors, it does. It impacts several areas. It impacts what constitutes a quorum. So in the past, you would need 3 members to make a quorum. Going forward, you may only need 2 to make a quorum. So if the city of Hobbs and city of Carlsbad or Eddy County, 2 of those meet, that would arguably constitute a quorum. So, but the votes on issues, yes, it will be weighted, and so Lee County's vote will count less than the other 3. The other 3 will be equal. So it does affect the votes, and it affects quorum.
Okay. And if in fact there was ever a liquidation of the property, it would be distributed based on these percentages?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So those are the 3 key items.
Right. And we have discussed.
Lee County with $25,000 could get back into on an equal footing with the other entity.
With the consent of the other 3 entities.
Okay.
The agreement requires the consent of the 3 entities for Lee County to make it up. There was discussion at a prior meeting, I believe it's when we met at the Eddy County building. There were comments made that there would probably be no opposition by the other 3 members for Lee County to make that $25,000 contribution.
Okay. thanks for the clarification. We needed to have that on the record. Okay, next item is consider approval of accounts payable. Chip?
Yes, sir, thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you go back to one section back to 5, the accounts payable is there at in the lower portion of the financial report. That's all of the expenditures year-to-date, and I stand for any questions that you have on them.
Do we have any questions or comments from anyone?
So all of these are yet to be paid?
Though they have been paid.
Oh, okay.
I ask for a motion to approval, a motion of approval of the payment of them, though, please.
Make a motion to
This
approve.
is,
We have a motion by Mr. Gallagher. We have a second.
second by Deaton.
We have a second by Mr. Heaton. All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Heaton on phone, Volpato on phone.
Uh-huh.
Aye.
And,
Aye.
okay, and I vote aye. So the motion does pass unanimously. Next item. Discussion on status of response to governor's letters opposing Holtec, the Secretary of Energy, Perry, and others. I'll take it on behalf of the city of Hobbs. We did meet with Holtec representatives, as John referred to earlier. We made some recommendations to them relative to the strategy as we're talking about the public consent aspects of this. And I have not been back in contact with Mr. Mayor or Jurgis since those meetings, but we gave them some ideas on how we think they should need to proceed and some strategies for them to look at. John, do you know if there has been any further action by them regarding that since that meeting?
I don't think that they have, any of us has met with Kenny since then, since he's the lead. But I think some of those ideas certainly were resounding with them and how to negotiate. And so I think those are important considerations.
Okay. Well, I think, at least for me personally, that we need to continue down that path, and then I'll certainly advocate for us to get the resolution in front of the commission, but I would like to see a couple of those items that we discussed come to fruition. So if you have the ability to have contact with Jurgis or Mr. Mayor, I'd appreciate it.
And from my perspective, I think that not having consent from Lee County or Hobbs, to write a letter or pursue it, I think that it's a little bit moot at this point since it's so distant from the time those letters were written.
Right.
I think that we just continue with our own local support, our own local resolutions of support, and just move on from that point. Both Eddy County and Carlsbad did pass resolutions of support.
Right.
So that's the status.
Okay. Any comments from the other members of the board regarding this matter? Okay. Next item on the agenda.
Not for me, Mr. Chairman.
Say again?
I don't have any.
Okay. Item number 9, consider award of request for proposal for general legal services. Mr. Caldwell?
Mr. Chair, Directors, the RFP was issued again and published in a number of newspapers as directed by the Board of Directors. We received one proposal. It was from the Sutton Thayer law firm in Albuquerque. In the interim, I've also had discussions with Mr. Heaton about a possible agreement with the City of Carlsbad to provide legal counsel. But the proposal from Sutton Thayer is included in your packet for your consideration.
And from the city of Carlsbad, what's the status of that, John?
They are interested in doing it.
Okay.
And they have been overwhelmed. They've been overwhelmed with their oil and gas summit in the last couple of weeks. So that starts today and over tomorrow. And the thought was that the city attorney and the city manager would come over and to Lee County and meet with Mr. Caldwell and go over more or less the responsibilities and what they would need to do. And so I think that they'll be making an appointment with him very shortly. So hopefully sometime next week they will meet with him, and then we should know definitively.
So it appears until that meeting occurs, we need to have a motion to table item number 9.
I would move to postpone until the next regular meeting.
I'll ask for a motion to table item number 9, the renewal of the request for proposal on the general legal services.
Mike Gallagher, I move to
move-
postpone to the next regular meeting.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Gallagher, may I have a second?
This is Heaton, I second. That was a motion to postpone, correct?
Oh, well, a motion to table item number 9, that's correct. So, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. And I vote aye. We had no opposition. The motion passes unanimously. Item number 10, consider renewal of Montgomery Andrews consulting contract.
Mr. Chairman, if I may make a comment, right now, just to give you a status report on the Holtec project and potential licensing, we are at a point where we are actually, by my calculations, about 18 months away. If I find it hard to believe that we've gotten this far this quickly. If it hadn't been that quickly, we've been at it for 9 years. At any rate, we're at the final push, members, and I think that this is not the time to be weak of heart. We expect that there will be a draft EIS come out in March, and then there will be hearings following that EIS, the environmental impact statement, and then in March of the following year, the anticipation is that there would be a final EIS released. And then what happens, that's the environmental side of the picture. And then the Nuclear Regulatory Commission issues what's called a safety evaluation report, where they put out a technical evaluation of the project. And we would expect that that would be forthcoming almost at the same time as the final EIS. Typically, a license is issued after the safety evaluation report, and if that safety evaluation report is positive, I am told that the NRC has never lost a lawsuit, that they are so technical that nobody can really argue their case against them in court. So I think that should give us all a high level of confidence if that's a positive report. I don't know why it wouldn't be. There are 68 of these interim storage facilities in the United States, so it's nothing new. And so it's my anticipation, and I think Holtec's anticipation, that in the spring of, early spring of next year, they would have a license. So my point being that I think this is the time that we really need to continue with a full court press, and I would encourage you to vote to continue this contract. And Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion that we continue the Montgomery and Andrews contract.
Okay, I have one question, Mr. Lowe, from a cash standpoint, the contract is, what's the amount of the contract?
It's $5,000 a month, it runs about $4,500 a month plus expenses.
Okay.
And right now there is, there should be enough funding in it to get us through the end of the year. Now, at some point, we may have to come back. We've got plenty of cash on hand right now. Depending on how much the legal services, our budget does project a positive cash balance at year end if we do make all the expenditures, plus I believe there are contributions.
When you're saying year end, you're talking June 30th?
Yes, 2019.
Okay.
Yes, sir. 2020.
2020,
Excuse me,
June 30th,
2020.
2020.
Yes, sir.
Not the calendar year, okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I've got a question. On the letter in the packet, it's dated September 12th of last year. Is this just renewing? Are all these terms still good, I guess is my question.
Terms, both the financial terms and the delivery terms are the same, correct, John?
That's correct.
Yes. So we have a motion to accept the renewal of Montgomery Andrews Consulting Contract. May I have a second?
Susan Crockett, I will second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Heaton and a second by Ms. Crockett. I'll ask for an individual vote.
City of Carlsbad, yes.
County of Eddy, yes.
Lee County, yes.
City of Hobbs, yes.
And the City of Hobbs, yes. So the motion does pass. So if you would notify them that we have renewed that, I'd appreciate it. Item number 11, consider hiring with Holtec Gary King as a technical consultant. Now, as I understand this, is Mr. King will, his services will be paid both by Holtec and by Eddy Lea. Is that correct, John? Do you want to elaborate on this a little more?
That's correct. Holtec is very interested in having somebody with technical expertise of Gary King. He has a PhD in chemistry and is well respected, has worked for DOE, as I think everybody knows, was the Attorney General for 8 years. He was a member of the legislature for, I think, 10 or 12 years, and chaired a committee, but is well known in the political ranks and well respected. And I think there's a strong belief that he would be helpful in the political arena, not only with our congressional delegation, but with the administration in New Mexico's government at this time, as well as legislators. And frankly, they need somebody of his reputation and technical background to be on the ground, to go to we're planning meeting after meeting after meeting, and it's difficult for the Holtec people to get to town and get into the state. And so he would provide that expertise in making presentations and be able to effectively answer technical questions and be more respected in terms of making presentations than somebody such as myself or any of us lay folks. So that is their interest. They would like to try him for 6 months at a price of $60,000 or $10,000 a month, and they want us to split with them at 50%. So that would mean a cost to us for 6 months of $30,000 at a maximum. And Mr. Chairman, for the purpose of discussion, I would like to make a motion that we participate with Holtec in hiring Gary King for not to exceed $5,000 a month for 6 months.
You know, John, we have no written documents in front of us regarding the contract and the terms and conditions, so I'm a little hesitant. I'm a little hesitant to take action today when we really, I think there needs to be some definition in writing as to what he's going to do, and so I'm not going to accept a motion today to engage in a contract with Mr. King without some kind of written document for us to fall back on.
May we do it this way so that we get direction, is that we enter into negotiations and to formulate a contract? Could we phrase it that way?
Yeah, I mean, as long as I think we need to have a contract in order for us to be able to justify our vote on the thing.
I think you're exactly. I agree, but I think maybe we should get consensus with the group that we should go forward with the process, and I think that's all we should really ask for at this
I would take a motion to do that and ask for a second.
Mr. Chair, before you.
I so move that we enter into
Just a minute, Mr. Reed.
negotiations
Yes.
and formulate a contract.
Okay, stand by.
Just so we're doing this cleanly, you do have a motion on the floor. I think you need to call for a second and let it die for
Okay.
lack of a second.
Okay, we do have a motion for us to enter into a contract with Mr. King. May I have a second?
Mr. Chairman,
I would,
Crockett, I will second.
Well, I'm not going to accept your second, it's a problem. I'm just trying to kill the motion.
Aye.
Chairman, I withdraw my motion.
How about that? Mr. Heaton has withdrawn the motion to enter into a contract with Mr. King along in a partnership with Holtec, so that discussion is off the table. Now we have, if I understand it correctly from Mr. Volpato, he has recommended that we have a motion to proceed in negotiations with a contract and Holtec with Mr. King, correct?
Yes.
Okay, I would accept a second for that.
Bring that contract back to the board.
Correct. May I have a second?
I second Mrs. Deaton.
Okay, I'll accept Ms. Crockett's second. Okay, I know it's difficult to do it on. Now we have a question. Mr. Smith.
My question is, we've approved roughly 56,000 for consulting. We had budgeted 120 for legal. If we engage in another contract at 60 or 30,000, how does the money come in? Will we assess all the members again?
Well, this one comes out of the budget. This would be,
Correct.
we'd have to make some budget adjustments, and then the assessment to the members typically comes, it will come as a separate item in there. It typically comes in the members don't direct the money. The city, for instance, the city, we give Lea $50,000, and then the Lea board has the discretion on how that $50,000 gets spent.
Okay. Has each entity traditionally given 50,000 a year?
That typically is what has been occurring. Yeah.
If you look back on number 6,
Page 6 will tell you.
I broke it out by what the member contributions have been. We haven't had any member contributions in 16, 17, or 18, but there was 25,000 per each entity last year.
With the exception of the council.
With the exception, yes, of Lee County, each one gave 25 exception.
Well, and that was the part that I saw that was troubling me, because with what we're committing ourselves to, I mean, there's gonna have to be another assessment to
Yes.
cover all these.
Yes, we will, I would say at this point, if we do the contract with Mr. King, and then we also do the contract with legal, or unless Carlsbad does it,
Well, even if Carlsbad does it,
then
I
we're
think.
gonna have to ask probably around mid-year, probably around the first of the year for contributions. And we did budget, I believe it was, I wouldn't think it was 25 or 50,000 per entity.
Yeah.
for this
Well, and
year.
I think the city of Hobbs has encumbered the money in our budget. We have not, it has not been released to Lea, but it's been encumbered in our budget for 2020.
Thank you.
I don't know about the county.
And the city of Carlsbad has also encumbered money.
Carlsbad has.
Eddy County has as well.
Okay. Okay,
Mr. Chair, may I ask a question?
sure.
John, can you help elaborate a little bit on why Holtec needs Lea to help cover the cost for Dr. King? I'm not, I've seen their team of legal professionals and attorneys and some of their, expertise. Why, if we're looking at, 30,000, I don't, can you help talk a little bit about that? It's not clear to me.
In our agreement with Holtec, the agreement is pretty clear about saying that the Eddy Lea Alliance will pay for and be active in supporting anything that goes on in the state, and particularly in the political arena. And that we said to them in the contract that they will pay for things outside of the state, like NRC and all of those kind of things that are their we would pay for expenses within the state. We have not done, I mean, they've been sending people out to go to these meetings and what have you, and they're doing that, and the CEO of the company keeps reminding everybody that we have this commitment and that we should be living up to it, and they're willing to do their part, but I think they want to see some expenditures by us and make in that effort. So that's why. It's actually an agreement that we have in our option agreement with them.
Well, and let me expand on that. Let me expand on that a little bit further, John. That's correct. I mean, really, Gary King is an addendum to item number 10, the Montgomery Andrews consulting contract. Holtec feels, based on their discussions within state government, that Mr. King can bring some expertise and possibly bring some people together as we work on the public consent side of this project, which he has some relationships with elected officials that maybe Montgomery Andrews does not. So I think that's really more the purpose of it than anything else. He's not going to be there for legal advice or anything. It's purely because of his current political influence and the expertise he has within the nuclear industry. Would you say that was a fair statement, John?
Yes, that is a fair statement, and also he would be a presenter
Right.
in various meetings that are occurring and will occur, and a number are lined up for primarily the rail routes at this time. So we'll go down I-40 is the next mission, and then we'll go down I-10 and up to Highway 54 as the next target, and do those consecutively. And having him here will make a big difference.
Any other questions regarding item number 11? Okay, well, we'll if you get them to get us some documentation on regarding the terms and conditions of the contract, we can put that next item on our agenda.
And Mr. Chairman, I think we need to vote.
Yes, we do, because we had questions on the floor. So the motion was to move forward with the negotiations with Holtec and Gary King as a technical consultant, and we had a motion and a second. I'll ask for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Carlsbad, yes.
Okay.
Eddy County, yes.
Lee County, yes, move forward with negotiations.
City of Hobbs, yes.
And I vote yes. So the motion does pass. The next item is item number 12. This is time for public comment. We ask that anyone that would like to speak to the board, please keep their comments to 3 minutes. Anyone would like to speak to the board this morning? Seeing none, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We have a motion by Mr. Smith. May I have a second?
Second by Susan Crockett.
All in favor say adios.
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 Thank you. Thanks everyone for your attendance.